I'm telling you this from my experience, right? So if you want to deal with AWS code pipeline, code build, code deploy, you must have some knowledge how the CI/CD work. And the first thing that to know this how this stuff's working, you must to have some hands-on Jenkins, because Jenkins do the build and the deployment together, right? But in AWS, when you use AWS tools, you have to use AWS code build, then AWS code deploy separately, then combine both of them in a AWS code pipeline to create this ICD pipeline, right? But you can integrate Jenkins with AWS code pipeline, and this lab I will show you in my next videos how you can integrate, right, Jenkins in AWS code pipeline to build and to test, then push that artifact, build artifacts to the code deploy, then the code deploy will do the rest on your behalf. So now they have to do clear that, right? And next thing that I have to do, right, is to create a folder in etc Ansible. In the old versions of Ansible, this directory comes with it by default once you install it. But in the newest versions, right, you have to create that directory by yourself, and there you will create your inventory files where you will define the host that you are going to control from your Ansible server or from your Ansible controller node. So the other hosts will be as slaves for your controller, Ansible controller node. So first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to create like a directory, right? So here in these labs, I will teach you some commands on Linux, how they work, and teach you the DevOps tools, right? So don't worry, you are not asked to be a Linux expert. You are not asked to have a Linux background to follow this course or this lab, right? So just I will walk you through it step by step, and then you will find yourself that you are doing these commands by heart. So to create a directory, we use a command called mkdir, and means make a directory, right? But only for one directory. But when you create a directory and subdirectory, we should use an option -p, right? Then etc ansible, right? We have permission denied. And why that's permission denied? Because if we go to etc, right, -l etc, sorry, you can see that all the user of that directory and the group of that user are owned this directory. So you don't have the permission to write. So if you look here, you don't have the permission here of other, right? Because this one, these three ones is for user, this one's for group, and this one's for others. Others means another user. For example, for example, I have another. For example, I have directory in the Linux called Abdel So other, it has, for example, rights. It will have permission right for user Abdel So me as, or in our example here, EC2 user, right? If we add something, for example, air and write and execute for others user. So EC2 dash user will have the permission to write to this directory without adding another thing to that command. And the command that you have to add is the sudo. By using sudo, you tell Linux, I want to have the privilege of the root user, right? But as you know, as an administrator, you can restrict this user from using this option of the user privilege. And you can do that by going to the etc I will write you the name here, the etc sudoers file, and here you can restrict the permission for that user. So even if this user types sudo make a directory, it will be not able to create that directory. Why? Because the administrator or the root user had restricted him from making a directory or from using a sudo privilege. I hope that is clear for you. PC Ansible, right? So the directory is created, and once it's created, I will create the inventory file. The inventory file is a file that contains all the IP address of the nodes that I want my Ansible controller node to control over them, to have control over them, right? So here I will define nano. Nano is a text editor. You can use VI or Vim, but me, I like nano. etc Ansible hosts. And here, open the bracket and type here, for example, I have localhost. I have a group of, for example, what we mean by this bracket. We can have a bracket, then a list of IP address, then a name between brackets and a list of IP address. What that means, for example, as an administrator, right? You work in the development, right? And you are an administrator, and in that account, you want to have control on the nodes of the test and the nodes of the production and the nodes of the development, right? So here, right, instead of, for example, make some commands on that remote commands on the development nodes, and you go to each node or each instance in the development environment and run that command on them. It's better to group them, right, and run on them the same command, right? Host. Yes, right. Next thing that we have to do to communicate. Sorry. For example, let me open Figma and to explain you what's going on, right? We'll open design file, right? Open here, change the color, right? And lock it, right? So here, let me give you, for example, this is our Ansible